you're just locked in, zoned in. I vividly remember, man, I was playing linebacker, scout team linebacker, and you tried to block me. You're like, make me look good, make me look good. You're like, man, just make me look good. And I was like, I got you, AB. I got you. What's up, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Second Win Podcast. You're here with Jay Mills and the great one again, as you know, the best two podcast hosts in the land. We just want to say, wish you guys Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays, and hopefully you guys have a strong New Year's resolution and have had great time with your family. Sorry for the long gap in between episodes. We just wanted to give you guys some time to spend time with your family. We felt like that was really more important than, us doing what we're doing. So hopefully you guys are tuning in, and we're back hitting the road heavy now. So
yeah,
thank
man.
you.
Y'all hit my phone like, when's the next episode?
Now
Episode?
y'all hitting the phone.
Yeah, man, my phone blowing up. Like, the
man.
next episode is right now, but here at the Second Win, we like to, give the viewers, the fans, subscribers time to, kick back and chill with your family a little bit. Like, lay off the podcast a little bit. But we back with another fire guest.
Fire guest, man. But they ain't hitting your phone, they hitting my phone. His phone dry. But first of all, we back, man. With that being said, we have a very special guest, man. Someone who I have known for probably since I was about 16 years old. Adam Breneman. And just to give you a rundown on this amazing individual, former #1 tight end in the country, former 5-star recruit, Penn State freshman All-American, 2-time UMass All-American as well, former political campaign manager, former tight ends, Division I tight ends coach, position coach at Arizona State University. And now he is a sports broadcaster and also has his own podcast. This man is the jack of all trades, man. I really appreciate this brother coming on the show and giving us time to share his story. So appreciate you coming on the show, brother, man. Brother. You're the guy.
Damn, you do everything.
Man, you did your research there, man.
Yeah, man.
That was the best intro I've ever gotten, man.
My guy.
You know what I'm saying? We a little prepared over here, bro. We a little prepared. Just starting off, just tell us how this past year has been for you, doing everything you're doing. And I just want to give you your flowers because I told you before, you're one of the analysts that actually, you can tell you have passion for the game and you understand the game. There's a lot of people who get on TV. There's a lot of beat writers. There's a lot of reporters who have no idea what they're talking about. And you listen to them and you're like, bro, whose cousin is this? Like, who does he know?
He sounds like
how did they get on TV? But like, they don't even know a 3 tech from like a 9 tech. You're a guy who knows the game and you know it very well. So I want to give you your props and your kudos.
I appreciate it, man. But before I get started, appreciate having me on. You guys are crushing it. As I told you, like, podcast is awesome. Guests are awesome. Quality is awesome. So excited to be here. Yeah, I mean, the last year's been nuts. I mean, like, really, I took a big pivot in my life after I left Arizona State and decided to kind of go all in on sports media. Honestly, the motivation was kind of Pat McAfee. And
really?
You remember the deal he got with FanDuel?
Oh, my gosh.
It was like $100 million over 5 years. I'm like, bro, I can do that stuff. Like, I was like, and I felt like in college football, like, I had this perspective of the game that not many people have. As a 5-star recruit, as an All-American at 2 different schools, transferred, was a Power 5 coach. So like I knew college football really well, and I didn't think there were a lot of people like posting a lot of content around it. There were great broadcasters. You have Kirk Herbstreit and Joel Klatt, but like, who owned college football social media? Like, no one owned it. No one was really dominating the space. And I just decided to go all in and started posting content and had no clue what I was doing. Like, didn't have TikTok on my phone, had no idea. And I ended up like hiring a video editor and started shooting content, and like second video I posted got like 3 million views, and I was like, whoa, this is sick.
That's all it takes.
Addicted to the views.
Right.
So I just started posting content, man, and it's been like every day since like middle February, March of this year. I've posted at least 2-3 times a day on across all platforms about college football, and it turned into so many opportunities. I've learned one thing: like, when you have attention on social media, opportunities come about. And that's how ESPN came about. That's how different podcast stuff came about and stuff I'm doing now. So it's been a wild year. Like, just posting on TikTok changed my life in a period of like 8-9 months. It's been fun.
A lot of that's just been on your own.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's been, I'm now at the point where I have kind of a team around me. I have like a video editor and I have a content manager, or else I wouldn't be able to do it all, right? I don't have time to post 4 times a day on every platform. But yeah, I mean, now that I built a team, it's been great, and been able to kind of like, employ some people and like have that around me. But most of it was on my own. I mean, when I started to go all in on it, I remember talking to my dad, and I was like, I'm going to start posting on TikTok. And, he's like, what do you mean you're going to start posting on TikTok about what?
Yeah, right.
And
like,
everyone thinks like TikTok's
about
like dancing and young kids and like, and, again, I just like went all in and kind of, had to take a bet on myself a little bit. And I'm sure we'll talk about it. But like when I left Arizona State, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do. And this was kind of, it all kind of just jumped all in full speed and it ended up working out.
Well, that's fire, man. It's like I said, you the jack of all trades. No, that's fire, man. You started on your own. Now you're obviously, like you said, giving your flowers. You're doing your thing. I'm proud of you, bro. I tell him every time I open my phone, I see your face.
Yeah,
every time.
That was the goal, bro.
That's a good
every time I
thing.
open my phone, it's AB. I say, damn, this dude's killing it.
Right.
That's a good watching it, not swiping right away, bro.
Nah. I'm like, no, you always know I'm showing love. But to pop it off, man, so I'm going to give you a date. Obviously, you know what date, but March 9th, 2012, man, you committed to Penn State. In a time where, obviously the program was in a lot of turmoil from the sanctions and scholarship reductions and just, everything that was going on surrounding the program. You were the number one tight end in the country, 5-star recruit. Why go there when you could have went to anywhere else in the country?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think people don't really talk about anymore, like where Penn State was at that time. Because now it's Penn State that's in the Rose Bowl and Penn State has 9 wins and everyone's pissed about it. It's like, why aren't we in the playoff? I mean, you were there. Like, in 2012, 2013, 2011, like that place was rocked by the NCAA and sanctions. And it was one of the darkest moments in college football history when I ended up going to Penn State. It was funny, like I was recruited by Joe Paterno and his staff. And then Joe Paterno ended up leaving when the scandal happened, but that was before the sanctions came out. And then Bill O'Brien came and became the head coach. And I wasn't going to go to Penn State before O'Brien came. I was going to probably go to like Notre Dame or Maryland or Ohio State or something. But then O'Brien came, and it was, he had just come from the Patriots. He had Rob Gronkowski, he had Tom Brady. They were in the Super Bowl. And I was like, bro, and it's in my backyard. I grew up a Penn State fan. So I'm like, and now the scandal was still there, but, we didn't think that it happened a long time ago before, anyone that's currently in the program was even thought of. So it was like, this ain't going to affect us. So I commit to Penn State. And it was really all because of Bill O'Brien, but it wasn't until then, like that summer when we're all committed. It's me, Christian Hackenberg, some of those guys in the 2013 class.
Yeah.
And then the NCAA came out with those sanctions against Penn State. And it was like, people called it the death penalty. I mean, you look at the tweets of like some of the analysts back then.
Yeah,
they were like, Penn State won't field a team for 5 years. They're going to be worse than Temple for the next decade. Penn State might as well move to FCS, like Division I AA. Like people thought Penn State was done. And, no one actually thought we would still go to Penn State. Like I didn't even think I'd still go. Like it was that wasn't even like an option in our minds because those sanctions were so bad. It was like, Penn State's not going to be able to have a program. They had scholarship reduction for like 4 years. I forget the exact sanctions, but lost like 20 scholarships a year. Players could transfer right away, which wasn't a thing back then.
Oh yeah,
transfers could leave and play right away at any school, which was like dramatic back then. That wasn't a thing.
Right, that was a big deal.
$100 million fine, no bowl games for like 4 years. I mean, it was just as bad, almost as bad as a death penalty, like what SMU got back in the day. And it, really wasn't. It wasn't until we went. It was funny. We had that whole class, like Hackenberg and all them, and we ended up talking. We were trying to go somewhere else together. We were trying to go to Florida.
Oh, y'all trying to be out.
We were like, who would take all of us?
Oh, that's right.
We want to stay together, but we were like, we can't go to Penn State because Penn State's
it's over with.
It's done.
It's done.
And then we were trying to go to Florida. We were calling coaches like me, Garrett Sickles. We are like, hey, he's like, can we go to South Carolina? Can we go to like who would take all of us? And it wasn't Bill O'Brien called us. He was still the coach. He was holding that team together. Michael Moudy stayed, all those guys in that class, Matt McGloin. Bill O'Brien called us and said, before you make a decision, just come talk to me. Like come meet with me in person and then make a decision. And we went to Penn State, and it was like the weekend after the sanctions came out. And again, everyone thinks we're leaving. And that whole class went to meet with Bill O'Brien. And included in that group was like Will Fuller. Remember he ended up decommitting.
Oh, the receiver.
Yeah, it was a receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
he committed Penn State?
Yeah. No, he went to Notre Dame, but he ended up decommitting at that point. But our class that was committed went to go see Bill O'Brien, and he talked to us and was like, you have an opportunity to be part of something bigger than yourself. Like this isn't about bowl games. This is about like saving a community, like saving this program. And I just remember he always said to us, if you come here, like they'll remember you forever at Penn State. If you guys come here, like your class will be remembered as the class that helped save Penn State football. And we left that day and we're like, let's go to Penn State.
And
that was it.
He was right. Yeah. He was right. So you end up going to Penn State, right? You become a freshman All-American. That's a feat that not everyone gets, right?
Yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about like where your confidence level was like after that season and what you expected for the future after getting, freshman All-American.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say before the season, I remember getting to college and thinking like, I'm not very good. Like,
really?
You know that feeling when you get to college, like, I was a big time recruit, came in a lot of expectation, and you get there and like, I had walked into this tight end room. They had a bunch of great tight ends already. Jesse James was there, Kyle Carter. Remember those guys?
Yeah, they got dogs.
And I was like, I don't really fit in here, but it was really Bill O'Brien that gave me like the self-confidence to, to kind of believe that I could play as a freshman. And O'Brien did a great job of, building me up, but also tearing me down at the same time of like taking my pride down a little bit of like, no one cares that you were a 5-star recruit anymore. When you got here, like no one in the country cares.
Were you riding high on that?
Yeah, I mean, dude, that's the thing. Like when you go through the recruiting process and everyone tells you how great you are for so long, it's hard not to believe it. You know what I mean? You're like everyone just tells you how great you are. Every coach is calling you. Urban Meyer's calling me and being like, man, like you're gonna come here, like you're gonna be the greatest tight end ever in Ohio State history. Like Brian Kelly's flying helicopters into your school. Like it's like, man, this is and you come from a school that doesn't have a lot of recruits. Like you're the man.
Right.
And you go to Penn State and like, I think O'Brien did a good job of like humbling me a little bit, which I needed. But also like, giving me the self-confidence of like, you can play at this level and like, you're really good. And if you do things the right way, like you can be a great player. And he did a good job my freshman year of kind of building me up to that. I ended up I think I started like 8 games my freshman year. I didn't, there were some ups and downs that season. I started the first couple games, then I got benched. And then I came back in and started the last like 6 or 7 games, had 3 touchdowns in the season. And I walked off that field at Penn State. We were at Wisconsin, 25-point underdogs on the road, 2013, last game of the season. We beat Wisconsin on the road. I had a 70-yard touchdown. Christian Ackerberg played lights out. We were flying high.
Yeah.
I remember walking off the field with Bill O'Brien after that game. We're walking off the field into the locker room. Bill O'Brien says to me, man, like, this is the start of a long career for you and I, man. Like, we're going to have so much success together. Like, so proud of you, man. Bill O'Brien never coached another game at Penn State, and I never called another pass at Penn State after that moment.
That's crazy.
It's just crazy thinking, like, in that moment, how I thought I was going to be 3 and done.
Yeah, I'm out of here. Yeah.
And boy, was I wrong, man.
Because most of the time when you're a freshman All-American, you're like,
yeah, man, like you're feeling pretty good.
Yeah, like then I'm out.
Yeah.
I'm All-American. I'm gonna get sophomore All-American,
and then I'm out.
And then I'm out of there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's crazy.
So for you, obviously, that season your confidence is sky high, right? And it's funny. So I did my research, man, and you said before that you were heavy into politics, right? And then that sometimes like your roommates, I don't even know, I think your roommates, maybe Tommy, but you say your roommates used to make fun of you because you always used to keep up on the politics and political stuff that's going on in the country. So those 3 years after your freshman All-American season, it's hard for you to stay on the field, on off the field with injuries, right? So what propelled you into politics after that, right?
Yeah.
And throughout that transition of being a freshman All-American and then those 3 years of not being on the field, right? Because you transitioned into that, being a campaign manager for Mike Regan. What propelled you into that? Because I never would have thought.
I love the research, man. I love it.
Oh, come on, man! I stay prepared.
Come on, man. We come prepared. Don't act like it was all you though. It wasn't all you though. I was doing the research too though.
He fact checked me a couple times.
I mean, like I had it. I mean, we was doing the research.
Bullshit.
We ain't coming here unprepared. Boy, we got you.
It's good. I love it. Well, yeah. I mean, after that freshman season, during that Wisconsin game I was just talking about, I fell on my left knee. And I tore my PCL on my left knee. Not a major injury, like pretty common in the NFL. And in college football, it was just kind of take some time off. Well, what happened is Bill O'Brien leaves for the Houston Texans, which is a whole other story for another day. But he gets up and leaves for the NFL, which I was frustrated about, but is what it is. My plan when O'Brien was there was to take the spring off. I wasn't going to practice in the spring. I was just a freshman All-American. I don't got to practice. I got my spot.
I'm chilling.
And rest my knee. Well, James Franklin comes in to be the head coach at Penn State. And whenever there's a new head coach, like
you got to prove yourself.
You got to prove yourself.
Yep, you're auditioning.
They didn't care what I did. Mike Gesicki had just come in at tight end.
Dog.
Bunch of Kyle Carter's coming back. Yep. Jesse James is back. Like I got to go compete again. And rightfully so. Like nothing. I agree. That's how I would do it if I was a head coach too. Go prove yourself. So I practiced in the spring, maybe when I shouldn't have because of my knee. fall on my knee again in spring practice. And when I fell in spring practice, it was like practice 2 of spring of 2014 or whatever. That was the injury that ends up for the next 4 years derailing my career. I chipped a piece of cartilage in my knee. At the time, didn't think it was a big deal, but throughout the next 2 years, I had surgery on it. That cartilage just wore away more and more and more. And it's the same knee injury that Greg Oden had when he was in the NBA. Remember, he never played in the NBA because of his knee.
Again.
Damn.
It's the same injury he had. So my knee was like deteriorating, and there's no good way to fix cartilage. Whole long anatomy lesson, but there's no good way to fix cartilage in your knee. So it deteriorated over the next 2 years to the point where, like, man, I couldn't play. I couldn't train. Anytime I'd feel good for 2 weeks, and then my knee would swell up again, and it'd be done. So I was just like, didn't love football anymore. My knee was shot. Wasn't going to play in the NFL. Got my degree from Penn State. I was like, I'm done. Like, there's no reason to keep trying to play. Like, I didn't play for 2 years. So like after that freshman year, I didn't play for 2 seasons in a row. I think I played like in 1 game and then didn't play for 2 seasons. So I got my degree from Penn State, and I was 20 years old. Didn't really know what I wanted to do. Like I had no clue. I thought I was going to be playing football. So the whole politics thing came about because a family friend who I knew, Mike Regan, was running for the state Senate in Pennsylvania. Big campaign. And he was like, Adam, you want to come work for me? And I was like, I guess, like, I don't know what else I'm going to do. Like, and I love politics. I was like, always followed like elections and stuff. I just thought it was interesting. And I went to work for him as like, kind of like his assistant at the beginning. And then I like got moved up into the role and ended up like running his campaign as I was 20, 21 years old for 6 months during that time between Penn State and then when I ended up transferring to UMass. So
that's crazy.
It was a whirlwind of like, it was a $3 million race in state Senate in Pennsylvania. It was a 4-way race. I learned a lot, man, a lot about like people and management and that kind of stuff. But politics is brutal, man.
That's what I was about to ask you. It'd be like being in that world, like being young and not having a lot of experience. Like, do you ever feel like, yo, these dudes are trying to rip my head off?
Yeah.
Like, do you ever feel like unqualified?
A little bit. I mean, when you're a campaign manager and you're so young, like you got people that are like reporting to you that are like 40, like a 21-year-old, and they're like, well, he just got that job because he played at Penn State,
right.
But I think, I don't know, I was always confident in like my ability. I didn't know the most about politics or like how to win the race, but what I could do is manage people and I could, deal with the day-to-day and deal with like the budgeting, and I was in business school. So like I could do all that stuff. And like we had other people who did the technical, like political stuff. But the most important part of that time for me was like, I wasn't working out for 6 months. I literally was just doing campaign work. I was wearing a suit and tie and going to work every day, maybe like lifting 2 days a week, but I wasn't running. So what that did is let my knee heal for 6 months without doing anything. And then that's how I ended up going back to play football when I thought, it's funny, when I left Penn State, I was done with football, man. Like, I am never playing football again. Like, my career's, I had such a bitter taste in my mouth about football. I was such a big recruit, so much, not only a big recruit, but a big recruit that everyone in that community knew because we went there at the time we went there. We were like saviors of the program, and like people were like chanting. I remember walking into Penn State games, dude, and like the student section chanting our names in high school. We're in high school.
Having the signs.
Having signs of us like Breneman and Hackenberg. Like my dad said to me, this is when you had to get a release to transfer still. There wasn't the portal. He said, why don't we get your release from Penn State in case you want to go play football? I was like, Dad, I'm not playing football again. Like I'm done. I'm done playing football. My dad's like, yeah, but I know you, and I think you may want to play football in 6 months.
Right.
And I was like, dude, I'm not playing football. Well, little did I know, my dad got my release without me knowing.
Oh, behind your back.
Well, they kind of behind my back, but like just said, reach out and got my release. I was working, so I didn't even care. 6 months later, I was like, man, my knee feels pretty good. And then I, connect people business. I knew the head coach at UMass, who was Mark Whipple. My high school quarterback, Andrew Ford, had just transferred from Virginia Tech to UMass. Knew some of the coaches at UMass, and I was like, they started texting me and were like, hey, why don't you come transfer to UMass and play? And I ran some routes. My knee felt good. And I remember going to my dad and my family and being like, hey, I want to go to UMass. And they're like, yeah, we got your release. You're good to go.
That's funny.
So isn't it funny how they knew what I was going to do that.
Yeah, right. Parents know you're the best, right? So you talk about the knee injury, it was on the level of Greg Oden. It was the same injury he got. What was your mental state? What were you thinking mentally when you went through that?
It wasn't good for sure. It was, I don't think that I've really, I've been blessed in my life. I don't think that I've ever been like depressed per se, but I certainly wasn't, my self-confidence wasn't good. You know, your whole identity's in that sport at the time. And like, when you go through that and you spend the 2 years of not playing, you almost feel like a worthless scholarship for the team.
100%.
I remember, man, like going to when I was hurt for those 2 years at Penn State, my sophomore and junior year. I remember like having like anxiety about going into the football building. Like I didn't want to be around anybody.
Same.
Like it was like, I remember at one point when I was hurt, I stopped going to team meetings. Just stopped going. I just didn't go. And it was during the season, so like no one would even really notice. I mean, they noticed, but like no one would say anything. I remember one day Coach Franklin texted me, was like, I haven't seen you in a week. Like, but I was going to rehab. I just stopped going to team meetings at like the 3 p.m. team meeting. I just stopped going. Like I was just doing my own thing. I was like, man, like this was my junior year, 2 years in a row missed practice. Like I did not want to be around it. Mostly just because of my knee. Like I couldn't do anything, and you feel like you're worthless. And I think too, looking back on my time at Penn State, I was young and immature. I didn't know how to handle the ups and downs of that. And I think I listened to all the praise when it was good, right? Like I listened to all of it. I was loving it, man. I was like, man,
you're the man. You're
I'm like, man, like I'm a freshman All-American. I came and I saved Penn State football, and me and this recruiting class, I led the class, and I was a big recruit. Like I was like reading my own press clippings. Like man, I remember like searching my name on Twitter. And being like, man, people love me, man.
Right.
The problem with that is when you listen when it's really good, what do you also do?
Listen
when it's really bad. Yep.
And when the headlines, like I remember my hometown newspaper had a picture of me on the sideline with a towel on my head, and it was like, sidelined again.
Jeez.
Breneman can't stay on the field, and then like all I remember the articles like, will Breneman ever play football again? Like that stuff impacted me, man, like way more than it should have. And I think I've learned that throughout the time is like you just can't listen to it at all. Because if you listen when it's good, you listen when it's bad, and you got to be able to stay like when you listen to the noise and outside noise, you get in these like peaks and valleys, man, of like. And it's been, that's been like something that I think I've gotten better at. I still listen sometimes. Like I ain't gonna lie, but I try not to get as high and low. And I've gotten way better at because then when I had to retire from football, my knee came back a second time and bit me, which I knew it was going to at some point. When I went to UMass, and we didn't even talk about that yet, but when I had to retire a second time right before the NFL, like it didn't hit me as hard as it did when I had to leave Penn State. Like I was ready for it, and I didn't care because I was self-confident and knew what I wanted to do in life, and knew that there was more, that I had more to give than just football. But yeah, it was definitely, it's when I look back at that time at Penn State, I was young, and I I didn't handle maybe like the praise and stuff as well as I could have, and it impacted me when all the bad stuff happened.
It's funny. I remember I have so many vivid Breneman moments, but I remember, you were a senior when I was a freshman. I was on scout team. I was redshirted, and I remember we played Ohio State. That was when they had Zeke. That's when they had all black uniforms. Yep. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, my freshman year.
Bosa.
Yeah, Bosa, all those guys. And you were maybe going to get some reps or in the rotation going to play, right? So you're locked in, zoning. I vividly remember, man, I was playing linebacker, scout team linebacker, and you tried to block me. You're like, make me look good, make me look good. You're like, man, just make me look good. And I was like, I got you, baby. I got you. 'Cause, like, you was trying to get on the field. I'm like, damn, bro. Like his mental, like at that time, Mike was, they were pushing Mike, and obviously Mike is doing his thing now. Had a great career at Penn State, but I think Kyle Carter was still on the team, but you were trying to get into that, that rotation, and bouncing back from that knee injury. I just remember, I'm like, damn, like. AB's mental probably wasn't the best at that time, to the point where you just gotta be like, yo, chill, just make me look good. Like I understand that. Like it's crazy. I had to share that story because
it's funny. I kind of remember that a little bit. So that week was my second year of missing all the time. And what happened that week, funny story, is like Kyle Carter got hurt. Yes. That was when I wasn't playing at all. Like I was like out, like on the injury report, like out for the season. And because my knee was so shot. But like, again, I could do things in spurts. So I could like go play for like 3 days, but then my knee would swell up and I couldn't do anything. So what happened that week, I remember John Donovan, the OC, called me because I wasn't even showing up to anything. I didn't know the plays. Dude, I was out.
Nothing.
I remember.
I was done. And John Donovan, the OC, calls me. He's like, "Hey, could you play this week if we needed to play?" I was like, "I mean, probably. I could play for a week."
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, "Come practice, Marcy to do." And I talked to the trainers and the doctor, and they're like, "Yeah, try to play." And I played Ohio State week. I started that game.
Yeah.
I started against
That's
Ohio
what I'm
State.
saying. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I didn't have any catches, but I started, played 25 snaps against Ohio State, and then I was done for the rest of the year.
So obviously fast forwarding to UMass, right, and you making that decision, right? So those 2 years you transferred to UMass, obviously, man, resurrected your career.
Mm-hmm.
Two-time All-American, led the nation as a tight end and receptions both years in a row. John Mackey Award finalist. You know what I'm saying, bro? You were doing your thing. So snapping, bro. So how, when you look back, how important was that decision to transfer from Penn State and go to UMass? When you look back on your career, damn, that was very pivotal for me.
Yeah, I think it was huge. I mean, like I said, when I left Penn State, I had such a bad taste in my mouth about my career because there was so much expectation. But again, whose expectation? The outside expectation. There was so much expectation for me to have this great career at Penn State. I didn't have it. I felt like a bust. I felt like, I was a 5-star recruit. I never lived up to it. That after that 6 months of taking some time off and going to UMass, the great thing about my time at UMass, and even though I never played in the NFL after that, when everyone thought I would, it gave me a sense of accomplishment and pride in my football career again, that I lived up to what I thought I should be. When I was going in my last year at UMass, I remember I did a Bleacher Report came and did a story on me when I was going to my second year at UMass and kind of the ups and downs and stuff. And I remember doing an interview. I have this vivid memory of sitting in the UMass football training table area and doing the interview with Bleacher Report. And I remember the guy said, he's like, "It's crazy to think about, but going into your last year, you're exactly where people thought you'd be. You're a returning All-American in college football who just led the country in receiving." And I was like, wow, that's I guess I am. Yeah. Not at the school I thought I'd be at, but
right.
But and it's true. I got to live up and prove that I was a great college football player, and I was, I'm one of the most productive tight ends in recent college football history. I had
You're that guy.
hundreds, 200 catches in college football. That's really unheard of as a tight end. Now, I never played in the NFL, and that still bothers me to this day, but I'm at peace with it because I'm at peace with my football career because I literally gave it everything I had. My knee my knee fell apart on me, but I got to prove to myself more than anything else that I could do it and that I was good enough to play at the highest level. And that's all you can really ask for. But that's what gave me, I don't have any of those regrets in my football career anymore. I don't have that thought of man, I just had what a bad college football career I had. If I wouldn't have gotten hurt, this would have happened. I got to live, a dream that few people get to live. I was an All-American in college football.
It's amazing, bro. Not many people can say that.
Yeah. So I don't have that terrible feeling about my football career anymore. Even though some people probably think I do because of the NFL not working out, but that's just part of you got to deal with the cards you're dealt, man.
Yes, sir.
Right. So so after those 2 seasons at UMass, you're going crazy, you're snapping. Senior Bowl participant. You're an All-American. You're a potential first rounder. March 13th, 2018, you retire from football. What was your thought process during that? How hard was that for you? Not going to the NFL when everyone thought you were going to go, but you knew that you weren't because of your knee. How hard was that for you to retire?
So, I knew that I wouldn't have a long, productive NFL career. I still thought there was maybe a chance I could go.
Mm-hmm.
But I knew because of the nature of my knee injury that my knee wasn't good, especially after my last season at UMass. My knee deteriorated a lot in that last year. It actually felt pretty good in the offseason between my last 2 years, my 2 seasons at UMass. But after my last year, I knew my knee wasn't good. It's funny. I actually thought maybe I had done something else to my knee because it hurt so bad during my last year. So, but I was kind of just playing through it. Scouts were coming in. No one knew how bad. It was the biggest kept secret at UMass.
Yeah, I heard,
Miss Jen, our trainers, doctors, they were Adam has never been healthier.
Right.
I wasn't practicing
That's
at all.
love, though.
When scouts would come, I'd go and they'd be like, "Oh, Adam's taking we're just giving him some time off, because I wouldn't practice.
Yeah.
We're just, he's our best player. We're just resting his body for him, but he's healthy.
Man would show up on game days and just ball.
Yeah,
They showed you love. They weren't snitching on you.
They did it. Mark Whipple, our head coach UMass, changed my life with that whole 2 years at UMass. But I we were keeping this like secret of how bad my knee was. Right after the season, I got an MRI on my knee because I was like, let's go see, like, hopefully, I was hoping that like the cartilage issue wasn't what was wrong, what I told you about earlier. And I was hoping that like maybe I just tore my meniscus and they could just fix it up and I'd be fine.
Yep.
But I got an MRI and it turned out that the cartilage that was missing in my knee went from like a centimeter to like an inch missing in my knee. And that's bone on bone now in my knee.
Yeah.
So I went to go train. I was training at this. I signed with an agent. You know, again, everyone's like, no one really knows. And I'm kind of, me and my family know that my knee's bad. That's really it. And then like Mark Whipple, our head coach, I signed with an agent, go to have a training facility, have a marketing agent, like whole ordeal. I signed trading card deals. Like everyone's saying I'm getting drafted. I go to train and I'm thinking like, take a couple weeks off and then like I'll be ready to train. First day of training, you do baseline testing. Like you train, like you run a 40, you do vertical. We got in, I was at the training facility, a place called Spooky Nook in Pennsylvania. It's where I did my draft training at. There were a few other guys there. Getting my, to test 40-yard dash, to get a baseline 40-yard dash. I get in my stance and I'm like, I haven't like opened up and sprinted since like the last game of the year. I get in my stance and I start to run my 40 and like 3 steps in, I'm like limping in my 40. And I'm like, all right, let me do that. My trainer's like, bro, just run. What do you mean? Just run. Do it again. Like get in my stance, test the 40. I'm limp, like can't run, dude. Like literally can't open up and run.
That's crazy.
And I'm like, and my trainer's like, why can't you run? Like just run. It's like, but it was my knee, dude. I couldn't run on my knee. I was missing cartilage in my knee. It was literally like bone on bone in my knee every step I took. So the pain was just like making me like hobble in my sprinting. So long story short, like we had to like change our training plan. It was now like, okay, can we rest them for another month, like not test at the combine or the pro day and just like, but then I had the Senior Bowl invite. And I remember saying to my agent, here's the worst part, going to the Senior Bowl, Bill O'Brien was the coach in the Senior Bowl who I played for, which is a great story. They put me on his team. Adam Breneman's going to reunite with Bill O'Brien at the Senior Bowl. But it was terrible because I couldn't run. And I was trying to keep this secret from every NFL team because if an NFL team heard I couldn't run, no one would have touched
It's
me.
over with.
It's over with. So I remember talking to my agent, a guy named Casey Muir with Octagon. I remember talking to him like, can I just like say I got the flu and can't go to the Senior Bowl? Like, because I can't go to the Senior Bowl.
That's crazy.
I can't practice.
Yeah.
Like, what am I going to do? And he's like, bro, if you back out of the Senior Bowl, like everyone's going to know your knee's messed up. So it's just, dude, it was like a nightmare. We ended up, I'll go to the Senior Bowl. Bill O'Brien's the coach. It was great to see him and great to be in. He's like, you're gonna ball out this week. He's talking to me like, we loved your film this season. Like, and the way I got through the season was I was getting Toradol shots.
Yeah.
Every day before the game, Sunday.
Boom.
In my right butt cheek. Big needle goes right in there with the Toradol shot, so I could play.
Yeah.
But you can't. That's so bad for you. You can't get that to train every day. No. So Senior Bowl comes, and that was a disaster. I ended up like going out there. Oh, this is the story for you. I ended up going out to the Senior Bowl, and we had a plan of like what I was going to do because I couldn't run. First routes on air session, I go up. I kind of hobble through a flat route, run it, look good, and then the seam route came. And the plan was first seam route I run at the Senior Bowl, you're gonna pull a hamstring. So I go out there to the Senior Bowl, and because I couldn't practice, like, and we couldn't tell him it was my knee. I go out, take like 3 steps on a seam route, and hammy.
Really? Oh,
man. Off. They put ice on it. Headline: Breneman out of the Senior Bowl with a hamstring pull. And then,
beautiful.
Yeah, so that just gave us more time to figure out what to do about my knee.
Right.
But dude, like no one knows that. I literally faked the hamstring pull in the Senior Bowl.
That's crazy.
But bro, it's like imagine my mental state during that.
That's what
bro.
I'm saying.
I was like, dude, I'm like, this is ridiculous.
This
dude.
is
like,
ridiculous.
We're just lying to everyone about my knee. But like again, I'm just trying. Really, the thought process was, can you get on a team and then have them try to fix your knee and get paid while they're doing it?
Smart, man.
You know?
Yeah.
But what ended up happening is I ended up like flying all over the country to see doctors. My dad invested a lot of money in me in that time. I was taking me all over the country to see like Dr. Andrews in Florida and a bunch of cartilage specialists. And we saw a bunch of doctors, and it was just kind of like, listen, like we can fix your knee for like everyday life, but like not to play in the NFL. And the reality was like, I was going to fail physicals. I was going to, I wasn't going to pass anything. So there wasn't even really a choice. It was like, I don't know. There was nothing else to do. It was kind of like, I just got to retire from football. But again, by that point, we exhausted every option
Every
possible.
option. You did everything you
every
could
doctor, but yeah, it was definitely a roller coaster, man, of you know, the ups and downs of like, you know, thinking I was going to go to the NFL and then not, and then the knee injury. But the good part is like, I always knew that I was more than just football. Like same thing like with you guys.
Yeah.
Like, I always knew there was more to life for me than just playing football, which some guys, like, they don't feel that way, which I have empathy towards that. Cause like, if all I had was football, man, I'd be done. I'd be down.
A lot of guys feel like they can only play football.
Yeah. That's dope though, that you had that thought process. Like you said, a lot of guys don't have that, you know?
Well, I used to, I remember, I don't know who said this, but someone at some point, some football player said it. And I always remember this. I want to say it was like Tim Tebow or someone was like, said, football is what I do. It's not who I am. And I always like, even nowadays, like I'm still in football doing like media stuff. Like I always view myself as more than just football. Like that's what I do. That's how I make money. That's what I talk about. But I can also go do a million other things. And like, I've always tried to like live that and like realize that like football is not who you are or what you're defined by. And just kind of keep that at the top of my head throughout my entire career.
So, that's a great point as well. That's a great quote because a lot of people should think like that. Yeah. But, you know, stories is very interesting, man. Like I said, you're a jack of all trades. And, you know, I've known you for so long and followed your story. And just the journey you've been on is just insane. So after that, you know, transitioning, you're like, you know, let me go coach. So you decide to go be a GA at Arizona State University under Herm Edwards, a great football coach. One of the great football historians. You know, he's done a lot for the game of football as a head coach. So you GA'd, and then that next year, which is unheard of, you're a positions coach. You know what I'm saying? You're a tight end position coach at a Power 5 FBS school, actively recruiting, being a position coach. Like that's one, hard to do in itself. Now, you know how the GA process is. You 3 years, 4 years of GA, then, you know, low level job, but like, bro, you hop right into the ranks. Like, how was it being in that culture and coaching under someone like Herm Edwards, who's highly touted and respected in the coaching industry?
Yeah. I mean, really, when I stopped playing at UMass, I didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. And I felt like, you know, I feel like a lot of successful people at some point had this issue where I felt like I could do a lot of different things. And I didn't know, like, I'm sure you guys had moments where like, you're like, what do I want to go? Do I want to go into management? Do I want to be in finance? Do I want to be you know, like, what do you want to do? And I felt like I had all these different options, right? Like, do I want to, like, I really want to be a head coach someday. That's what I was like, that's what I want to do. Well, then it was like, well, I really want to be a CEO of a business. Well, I really want to be on TV. Like, I couldn't decide what I wanted to do. So you know, it's funny. I was like debating if I wanted to get into coaching. I went to go see Coach Franklin at Penn State. I had texted him and was like, hey, I think I want to coach and I would love to get your advice on it. And I went to go talk to him and I was telling him this. I was like, Coach Franklin, like, I don't know what I want to do. Like, I feel like I could be good at a bunch of different things. And he was like, that's not like a problem only you have. He's like, every successful person could be good at a million different things. And I was like, I guess it's a good point. And Franklin was like, I could have been a CEO. I could have been, you know, but I decided to be a coach. He's like, you just have to decide what you want to do. And it changed my perspective because I was like, everyone's got to make that decision. I was like, oh, I'm really struggling with this, but everyone has to. But, you know, I decided, like, I was like, I want to go try coaching. And the drive of it was like, I could see myself being a head coach someday. It was like, I could see myself doing what Bill O'Brien and James Franklin and Mark Whipple, and I've been around some great coaches that like changed my life, that I wanted to see if I could do that. So, but getting in the door is hard in coaching. Like, you got to especially if they get in at the Power 5 level. But at that point it was like, now's the time to do it. I was 24 years old. It was like, I had all these experiences, but like, I got to get in the door. So long story short, like, people business, like, I had a connection. My strength coach at UMass, Joe Conley.
I wasn't there for Conley, but I heard about your squats. Big Squat Fridays. I heard about it, but he was at Penn State too.
Squat Friday,
bro. Big Squat Friday, bro. This dude sounds crazy.
Oh, dude, we see a lot. But that's my guy though, Joe Conley. He was great, but he's also nuts. But love him to death.
Nuts.
He was the strength coach at Arizona State now.
Yep.
He was like walking through and I had reached out to him and been like, hey, I think I want to coach, but like hadn't heard from him in a month. And that was really it. And then he like was walking through the hallways at ASU and they were like, we really need a GA that could coach tight ends. And he was like, I got a guy for you. He calls me. He's like, do you still want to coach? And I was like, yeah, I guess. I haven't really thought about it because I couldn't get any opportunities. Like Franklin was like, we don't have anything at Penn State. Like, you got to like go find, you know, I'll help you find something else. And I I was like, yeah, I still want to coach. And then next thing you know, the OC at ASU calls me and interviews me. Herm calls me, and I played for Herm in the Under Armour All-American.
Oh yeah, that's
game.
right. He did.
So I knew him from that a little bit, but he barely remembered me. Probably. I mean, I was one of 50 players on that team from like 6 years ago. And they hired me at ASU, and I literally like. This was like a Thursday. He calls me on Monday. I lived in Arizona. I mean, it was the blink of an eye. And I just went out there and started coaching. But it was, and coaching's brutal. Like you're working 6 a.m., 5 a.m. to midnight every freaking night. But it was awesome because I was a GA during COVID, so it was like a really weird time to be a GA.
That 2020.
We only played like 3-4 games, and then literally that off season, the tight ends coach got fired at ASU, and they interviewed me for it along with like 3 other guys. And then I'll never forget, like one of the coolest days ever was, and when you're in that position, like I desperately wanted to get that job because I was going to be the youngest in the country. I was 25 years old, going to be making like real money as a Power 5 tight ends coach. I remember I was in the weight room working out one morning. I had just interviewed like 2 days ago, and Herm Edwards comes over and he's like, come see me in my office. And you know how Herm talks. He's like, hi, what's up, baby? What's up, baby? Come see me in my office, all right? Come see me in my office. All right, coach. So I go and see him like an hour later in his office, and he's like, you're going to be our tight ends coach. You're going to be the tight ends coach. And he's like, congratulations, young guy. And like, he's like, walks away. I was like,
that's amazing.
Just does it simple like that. Like it's no big deal.
I was like, let's go, man. I remember calling my parents and my family and like letting everyone know. And it was cool, man. That was a cool moment to like, because at that point too, again, feeling like you're like getting towards the top, and then everything else happened. But yeah, I really enjoyed coaching. I learned a lot about football through that too. Like you don't realize how much you don't know about football when you're playing. Like I didn't know ball when I knew it, but like
from a coach's perspective,
like just everything that goes into it, like why we call certain plays and the schemes and
concepts
how you deal with personnel and recruiting. I mean, recruiting's what it's all about. Like that's why I got promoted. Yeah. Because it wasn't because I knew football better than everybody else. It was because I could recruit and relate to all the players and be in different environments and be with different people from different cultures and like fit in with everybody. And that's why when Herm, like when we eventually talked about it, that's what he said. He's like, I trust you being with our players and like leading them more than I trusted anybody else. And it wasn't because I was going to be the best drawing up plays. It was because of being able to relate to people.
Yeah. Fire, can you sign guys? That's the business.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the business. Can you sign guys?
Acquisition, man. Can you bring in talent? Yeah.
So your story is crazy, right? When you look at your current situation, being an analyst, having a podcast, really being in like your second win, but like really your like fifth win.
Yeah, there's a lot of wins. A lot of
wins. What is your favorite part about, what you do now?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think the cool part about what I do now is, number one, it like feeds I've always had like an entrepreneurial mindset of like, I like to do a lot of different things, and it allows me to do that right now. Doing the media, doing the content, doing the TV, doing the stuff I do with Mercury, doing all the different stuff. It feeds that for me, and there's always something to do. Like when you're building something from the ground up, like you're building like when you guys build your podcast, like there's always something you can be doing, prepping for interviews, getting content ready, like planning, like you can always be grinding, and it's given me that like fulfillment of like building something from the ground up and being part of that. I think, and two, like it's cool to kind of see it all cultivating right now and coming together. I think, like you said, I've had so many different second and third or fourth wins. Like, I did a story, Penn Live, which is like a newspaper from my hometown, Pennsylvania. They did an article on me recently, and they said something in it that was really interesting when I was reading it. It said something like, every time Adam Breneman has been close to the pinnacle, he's gotten knocked down. And I was like, yeah, like that's true. Like, I was at Penn State, was almost the best head in the country at Penn State. Well, got knocked down. Almost in the NFL, got knocked down. Youngest Power 5 youngest Power 5 coach in the country, got knocked down. ASU scandal happens and I resign. But the reality is also that I've lived and had fulfilled dreams that like people only can dream of. Yep. Like, I was a Power 5 assistant coach. I was an All-American. Like it's just almost how you look at it, right? Yep. Like, yes, I've gotten knocked down, but now I really feel like I found kind of like a niche of like what I'm good at and what brings it all together. And it kind of, I think everything I've been through, the journey of, getting hurt, not playing the NFL, the successes I've had, the stuff that happened at ASU, like it has brought me to this moment to to begin my media career and to go all in on it. And like, there's no choice but to succeed. You know, like I literally, sometimes people say to me, or sometimes I think like, you know, I work so hard and want to be great at other things because I'm feeling a void of not playing in the NFL.
Yeah,
but like the reality is like, that's probably true. Like it is. I am feeling a void of not playing in the NFL. Like I never got to play in the NFL. I didn't make $10 million a year. I didn't, and a lot of my friends did. And a lot of, you know, a lot of me feels like I could have if I wasn't hurt. But like, that's why I work so hard at other stuff I do. That's why I want to be great. That's why I want to be the face of college football media.
Yes,
because
sir.
because I have that drive of like, I never made it to the level that I thought I could playing. So, you know, is it filling a void? Maybe, but like, I'm okay with that. Like that's what that's where that drive comes from. When you have that where you don't reach what you want to, like it just pushes you to be great at the next thing.
That's fire, bro.
It makes you like obsessed with it.
Yeah.
Right.
No,
prove yourself right.
Yeah, exactly. Like
you got to prove yourself right.
And you're proving it to yourself more than anything else. Is it a little bit to the outside world? Like maybe, like, you know, that drives everybody, but like really it's to yourself. It's like, you know, I know that I can be great, and you know, I'm not going to stop until it happens. Because if I don't, you feel like you let yourself down, right? You're like, you never want to be laying on your deathbed being like, I didn't reach my potential.
Yeah,
you know,
I didn't go hard
so
enough.
much greater than I was.
Yeah,
right.
You know,
it's like you can't just be interested. Like I texted Jarvis the other day.
That's a great line.
I said, what was it? Like
you
interested people watch, obsessed people change the world. So like you can't just be interested. You have to be obsessed with it. Like Tim Grover talked about, like Kobe talked about, like the people he's been around and how they're all obsessed. He was like, Kobe wasn't just interested in winning a championship. Like Serena Williams, Michael Jordan, Michael Jackson, Kanye, Jay-Z, Beyonce. Like these people aren't just like interested in being the best. Like
they're obsessed.
Mark Zuckerberg, like Jack Mullers, like people that I know, like they're not just like, oh yeah, I just want to do this just to do this. They're like literally every second that they're alive or they're awake, they're thinking about being the best. And like that's how you have to be if you want to be successful at anything. You know?
Speaking of like great quotes, like that's a great one. The whole interested people watch, obsessed people change the world. The one that, and I think it applies like all of our lives and different, like your football stuff. I've learned that, you ever hear the story of the Chinese farmer? Have you heard that? Where I forget the whole story, but the gist of it is, there's a Chinese farmer who you know, has like a horse farm or whatever, and his horse runs away and doesn't have his horse anymore. And everyone's like, oh, that's terrible. I'm so sorry to hear that. Like that's the worst thing ever. And he says, well, maybe. I'm like, is it? And then 7 wild horses come, and like he gets all these horses back, and they're like, oh, that's so great. Glad you got new horses. He's like, so that's so awesome. And he's like, well, maybe. And then the horses that come, like the one breaks its leg and he falls off it, and everyone's like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. Like that's terrible. And he says, well, maybe. And it goes on and on. And the point is that you don't really know if what's happening to you is good or bad until you see how it impacts the rest of your life.
Yep.
Like you don't really know. Like at the end of the day, like what happened to me at ASU, like probably could have been a good thing because it propelled me into this rest of my life. In the moment, it felt like it was terrible, but it propelled me into this. Not playing in the NFL, maybe it saved me from having a neck injury that I didn't know about. And like it looks bad in the moment, or it looks good in the moment, but you don't really know. And I just love that story of the Chinese farmer, because it's true. Like you, like when something good or bad happens, well, maybe, like we don't really know if it's good or bad until you see how it's going to impact your life.
100%. I'm gonna play a game with you, man.
Oh, I love it.
I'm gonna play a game with you. I'm gonna have a list of names, places, one place, but I want you to tell me what those specific things mean to you. So when those names first pop into your head, how does that impact you? How do you feel? Okay. So I'm gonna go down the list. Okay. Cedar Cliff High School.
Man, I love Cedar Cliff, and that place, that was where I was when, you know, my life changed with the football stuff. Like with being a recruit, having all the attention on you, like, and there probably isn't any place that molded my life more than Cedar Cliff, and like that community and those fans did around, you know, when I was growing up through that whole, you know, and it was cool to take them through that journey with me of being a recruit, you know, and you get to bring that whole community with you. But I love Cedar Cliff, man. That's my spot.
Christian Hackenberg.
He was my best friend during that whole time, man. If it wasn't for Christian Hackenberg, we wouldn't have stayed committed to Penn State. You know, if Christian Hackenberg would have left Penn State at that time, a lot of people would have left. And he really, a lot of people say like Christian and Adam. It was really Christian. Christian held that place together.
My guy. Penn State?
Man, of everything that I've done in the different parts of my life, I still say that the thing I'm most proud of is what we did at Penn State and staying committed to that place. And if there's been one constant in my life, it's been Penn State, man. Like, even when I transferred and left, even when the Penn State community has been like supportive of me in every single thing I've done. I still to this day go back to games and fans still come up to me and like, thank you for what you did for Penn State. I mean, that place is special.
No, it's like a zoo.
It really
it's
is,
like a cult.
I love that place.
Bill O'Brien.
Man, he's the reason I went to Penn State. I often think about how different my career would have been if he would have stayed at Penn State. But he did what's best for his family and went to the NFL, and I don't blame him for it. But I wish I would have had the chance to continue playing for him in college.
Next one's kind of interesting because I just know you guys were so close. And I just wanted to see what you say. Mike Gesicki.
I love Mike, man. Like one of my closest friends. He, it's funny too, like how all these people impact your life. Like, Mike coming to Penn State, and really probably like pushed forward the end of my Penn State career faster than it would have without it because he was so good.
So good, yeah.
And so talented. But at the same time, we were best friends. And Mike and I went through some shit together now. Mike was going through that year where he was not playing very well when I was going through the same year. And we were roommates.
Yeah, I remember.
And I remember the time when Mike was down bad too. And like we were there together during that time of like, man, like football sucks. Like, he wasn't playing well. I couldn't play. And but Mike means a lot to me, man. He's a special dude, man. Like anyone who's around Mike, like he has
Mike's
energy that just like radiates everything.
Did you teach him how to gritty?
Nah, Mike, we gotta work on that gritty.
We gotta work on that a little bit.
Yeah,
man.
That was a little tricky.
That shit was atrocious, brother.
But when you know Mike, like that's him. So
Mike.
Grittying. I remember Mike. It was right after a game. Mike has a contagious confidence, dude. Like his confidence is when he was playing that season, he was playing really bad, dropping a bunch of passes and stuff. I remember the night, it was Halloween night, and he had just dropped like 4 passes in the game, and everyone was coming at him on Twitter and stuff. The Halloween costume, he wore a Superman cape with an S on his chest with no shirt to the frats. And I'm like,
I remember.
Bro, that takes extreme confidence. Like you might not care what anyone thinks about you. But
the next name, someone that first comes to your mind and how they have impacted you, Mark Whipple.
Man, he impacted me a lot, dude. I mean, he gave me a chance at UMass when I had just retired from football, took 6 months off. My knee was shot, and he called me and said, we got a spot for you. And not only that, told me we're going to throw you the ball 100 times a season, and he didn't lie.
Big Whip was dialing that shit up.
Man, he told me he because again, if it wasn't for that time at UMass, I'd have a much different taste in my mouth about my football career. And not only that, he's been a part of my life every moment since then. Like coaching, he helped me out. When I got the job at Arizona State, he has a vacation house in Arizona. Stayed at his vacation house for a month and a half.
That's fine.
So he's been a big part of my life and his family. Like Brenda, his wife, and Austin and Spencer, his sons. Austin was my roommate at Penn State. Awesome family. Just big part of everything that's happened in my life.
And last but not least, Herm Edwards.
Herm gave me an opportunity when I needed one. He made me his GA when I'm sure a lot of people in the country wanted that job, and then promoted me when I was 24, 25 years old, and he's impacted my life a lot. And I think that that chapter is still getting written of how that ends, but I'll always be thankful to Herm for the opportunity he gave me when he didn't have to, and he took a chance on me 2 times when I wasn't expecting him to.
Yeah. All right, man. It's the new year, 2023, right? What can we expect from Adam Breneman?
Oh boy. Man, I'm just gonna keep building. You can expect every time you open your phone, and hopefully you see my content.
That means you're doing something right.
See my content. I think. I mean, my like North Star in this media game is like I want. When I started, it was like when I wrote down my goal on a piece of paper when I was coming up with my plan, it was like to be Gen Z's college football personality. Like when Gen Z thinks about college football, I want them to think about me. Yeah. And because like they don't watch cable television. I want them to think about me on TikTok or in social media and all that stuff. And I think I'm on the path to being there. But I want to like keep diving towards that, like keep producing great content, keep building my own brand, and with the North Star of like at some point taking off that Gen Z tag and then just being one of the faces of college football. Like that's what I think. There's great personalities. A lot of them are older, or the Kirk Herbstreits, the Joel Klatts. Like, there aren't a lot of young guys who are in their 20s that are like, doing the college football media game and doing it at a high level. There's some guys like Jake Butts, one of my buddies who played at Michigan, doing a great job. Devin Gardner's crushing it, but I think I can get there. I think that it's if I keep executing the way that I am now, that's my goal. And to keep, as I was telling you earlier, Jarvis, I think all the different stuff I do, the podcast, the stuff like this, my personal content, my broadcasting, building Mercury, like all that stuff, it all goes hand in hand. And I want to do all of it at the highest level. And I think it all could, come together and get me to that point of, to be in at some point, like the Kirk Herbstreits and in that world of like, that's my goal. And it may sound crazy, like it may sound audacious when I say it, but like, what's the point of doing it if you're not going to have big goals, right?
Yep, that 100 M's is on the way.
It's coming, brother.
100 M's is on the way, man. You got to speak it into existence, man.
Goal, man. But like I was telling you before, Adam, the special thing about this podcast, when people tune in, we want people to learn something, right? And just get something from this podcast and these great people that we have on, like yourself and your stories, and it's just so impactful, bro. But I gotta ask you, for the people watching, like what advice, like for someone who watches this, what can they take away? Like what advice would you give to someone who's in your situation right now, doing what you're doing? What advice would you give to that person watching?
It's a great question. What advice? I think, we've talked about it a little bit. The biggest thing that I think I've taken away and that's like helped me in my journey and in growth is what we were saying about not getting too high and too low. I think that is without a doubt, the people that are great in life and have success are able to stay in their zone and not be too distracted by things on the outside. And not being influenced by what everyone says, positive or negative, because the reality is misery loves company. Like miserable people will try to make other people miserable. The friends you're around, the people that impact you, like I've learned, man, like I'll go to people for advice about stuff. I'll be like, hey, like I have this idea. And like people give you advice because they're viewing it through their lens, right? They're viewing it like they're not happy with their life. They're not making any money. They're upset. So like they're going to give you advice through that lens instead of people love success, but don't love successful people. You know what I mean?
That's a bar.
People are going to want you to not be as they want you to be successful, but not as successful or more successful than them. So like I've learned, you just got to block it all out. Like you just got to do your own thing, go all in on yourself, bet on yourself. Cause like at the end of the day, no one's going to give you as good of advice as you can give yourself. And just not listen to the outside noise. Cause then you can stay level headed and not get too emotional and too up and down. And it allows you to kind of propel without getting impacted. And then I think, the other thing that I think that really successful people have is the ability to be self-aware and like to work on self-awareness at all times. And it kind of goes into like emotional intelligence as well, but having great self-awareness and being self-aware if you're not self-aware, like that you got to work on that, is I think another like key indicator of people that can have success. People that are good at like this stuff, like you guys clearly have it because you're good at like, making people feel comfortable. Like I almost forgot we got cameras on us during this. But
I don't even worry about them.
They're not real. Yeah, but I think like, and it's not just being aware of what you're thinking and your emotions, but also being aware of what other people are thinking about you, and like being able to like understand that and have those conversations and be connected with how other people are thinking. That's what like great successful people have. And I think those are the two things, like, staying level headed and not listening to ups and downs and not taking advice from everybody because no one's actually going to give you great advice. Mm-hmm. And then, being self-aware and just being able to navigate relationships and things with that mindset.
That was an amazing answer, bro.
People love success, but don't love successful people.
That's a bar.
Isn't it true?
Write that down,
bar,
bro.
boy.
Tell me it's wrong, though.
It's a bar,
So
boy.
right.
It's a bar.
Now you about to be saying, watch, he about to say it. Watch, he about to be around.
You
and
be
he gonna say it.
hating
I'm gonna
on
be
me.
like, quote AB, man.
You be hating on me.
Say AB.
Well,
Nah.
I definitely stole that from someone.
That's
I
all
don't know
good.
who
It's
it
your
was,
quote
but-
now. It's your quote. But no, AB, man, you know, you my guy. We appreciate you coming on the show and just, you know, dropping some gems on us and the people who are viewing. You know, just grateful, bro. Just grateful you have in my life, and I hope everyone watching can realize how much of an amazing, talented individual that this person is, and all the things that you have accomplished and are going to accomplish. So I just want to say thank you, much love, and we appreciate
Much love,
Much
man.
love, bro.
We appreciate you coming on here the second win, brother.
guys watching, man. People watching, guys, girls, man. Thank you so much for tuning in. We're gonna have some more fire guests coming. Stay tuned. We're gonna be hitting the road hard. Everyone, stay safe. Keep those New Year's resolutions strong. And you know I get the best ball fade ever. But
I
appreciate
I got
you.
a curly joint now. You know what I'm saying? I'm a little
Stay
foreign.
safe. Second win. Appreciate it.
Foreign gang.